What's up guys? In this video I want to tell you guys about an upcoming MMO in Korea called Elyon, formerly known as Ascent Infinite Realm. Now the game just went into its second open world beta test, but given the rate of its development and New World's delay, this will likely be the next big MMO to launch and would be a great way to tide you over until some of the other bigger Western titles come out, such as Ashes of Creation. The reason this game is moving so fast and worth looking at is because it is being developed by Kakao and Bluehole Studios, the guys behind Terra Online and Black Desert Online. So much so that art assets such as armor and outfit model files from Black Desert Online have been found within Elyon's game files, and the developers openly admit they are using assets from both of the games in Elyon. Now in terms of gameplay, the reason Elyon has piqued my interest is because it has a lot of elements from Black Desert Online, such as housing, in-depth crafting, smooth combat, even auto-fishing and auto-path questing, but it also has a lot of things in it that Black Desert Online is missing. It has the trinity of healer, tank, DPS, it has 5-man dungeons, it has extensive PvE content and a lot more incentive for group play, faction-based gameplay, and much more open world PvP support. So if that sounds like it's going to tickle your fancy, I'm going to give a brief overview of all of the features we know so far in Elyon. Now keep in mind, this game is still in a beta state, and they do their tests sparingly despite the game being predicted for a December launch in Korea. So that means anything I say in this video may be changed by the time the game launches, and even more so when it makes its way to the West. Hence why I am not going very in depth on everything here. And also a special shout out to all the people who worked hard translating all of this content from the Korean website. I do not speak any Korean myself, but I will put links in the descriptions to the guys who translated this so you can support their content. Without their help, this video would not have been possible. But let's get started with character creation in Elyon. So like Black Desert Online, the character appearance customization in Elyon is quite extensive. You are able to choose from 4 races. There is Orc, Elf, Human, and Ain. Most of these are pretty standard fantasy races, but the Ain are these cute little animal-like creatures. Not quite like Ellen though. As of writing this, it doesn't appear any of the classes are gender locked or race locked, and the 5 classes are as follows. There are Warlords, which play as a tank type or a bruiser melee combatant. There's the Assassin, which basically plays exactly as you would expect. They use a resource similar to energy in WoW, combo points, stealth, etc. So the same class fantasy rogues have in World of Warcraft, but they can spec to more frontal assault, cleaving damage, or stealth. Mystics are the healers of Elyon Online, but are also capable of dishing out decent damage if spec'd to do so. Then Elementalists are essentially the mages that utilize a variety of magic such as fire and ice, etc. And lastly, we have the Gunslinger. This is a ranged DPS class that can be more physical damage focused or magic damage focused and offer a lot of mobility with kiting. In terms of combat, it is the action combat style you've come to expect from BDO and Terra, with minimal animation locking for things like when you cast a channeled spell. And from what I have seen and heard since this last test, the combat has improved greatly and felt extremely smooth to play. One of the first knee-jerk reactions I hear often though is that it only has 5 classes and that's too less, but these classes are extremely customizable so that 2 players of the same class can have completely different ability sets, but we will get into that towards the end of the video. Now for choosing a faction when you make your character, this is not done. It is done in the later levels around max level after you finish the main story quest line. Next, let's go into leveling and questing and open world stuff. So the game has many unique types of quests. There is the main story quest, which is required to progress through the world and unlock a lot of key features for your game and for your character. Then there are region quests, which you are required to do to unlock certain regions, otherwise you can't get inside them. Then there are normal quests, there are daily quests, world quests, which are on basically timers and they appear for all players and they're announced across the area. There are resource collection quests, and there's a lot of mini games like platform jumping, etc. For example, there's a chance when you gather an herb on your housing plot that it can spawn a special herb portal, and you and a few other players can go through it and do this herb collecting mini minigame, and then you're kicked out of the portal after 5 minutes, and whatever you collect you get to keep. Now when it comes around to doing these quests, they do have auto-pathing, just like BDO, where you can select a location or a quest, you just press a button and your character will automatically run there. It also features ground mounts of varying types, and there are also things called wingsuits. They are not flying, but they allow you to glide slowly down to the ground, but other players can still attack you in this state. In terms of dungeons, the game has announced so far to have a group size of about 5 players for typical dungeons, and it has a looking for group dungeon tool that can be used to matchmake and teleport you to the dungeon, or you can enter the dungeon manually with your own group. The dungeons do have things like level and gear score requirements to queue up, but those requirements are gone if you just walk in the front door. The dungeons expect you to have the typical trinity in your group, so you need a tank, you need a healer, and you're going to have 3 DPS. There are also several solo dungeon story quest sort of things on the way to the max level, and the first 10 dungeons you complete a day would give you bonus rewards. And that's really typical for Korean MMOs, that they have these daily caps to try and get you to do stuff a certain amount in a day, so that's nothing unusual. In addition, there are many field bosses out in the world, most of which will be marked on your map when they appear, and you'll be able to see what loot they can potentially drop by just clicking on them, though I'm unsure the difficulty of these field bosses. From what I saw in the tests so far, it seems like you just zerg them down with a bunch of players, kind of like the Black Desert Online world bosses, and you get some cool loot for doing it. Now, a lot of the Endgame PvE content is actually open world PvX content and ties into the PvP content, focusing on a special area of the world called the Haas continent, I believe. So the continent features a mix of events, sieges, and other sort of PvP-esque. And when you go to these events on the Haas continent for PvX content, they are capped at 200 players, as the recent Elyon tests have been leaning towards testing the limit of what the servers can handle in one location. These numbers may increase as time goes on and the testing and the hardware improves. To give you an example of what these events look like, one event is titled Dragon Hunter's Border, translated, where both factions have control of a citadel to the north and the south, and your goal is to push towards the center of the area. It involves PvE quests from your citadel, as well as quests that reward you for killing the enemy faction as they attempt to complete their PvE objectives of killing the monsters and the mini-bosses. Participating rewards you with special currency that is lost once the event ends, so it must be spent during the event. In addition to this, if you kill another player, they have a 50% chance of dropping their accumulated points, and you can pick that up. So this incentivizes players to accumulate as many points as possible every fight, with the risk that if you die, you have a chance of losing what you've earned. There's a lot of risk versus reward gameplay in the progression here, which I think is a nice return to the MMO genre. The other events are more or less the same idea, just different variations of different types of monsters, but it seems like there's always something that's going to be going on the Haas continent, and each type of event rewards you different types of rewards to help you progress your character, such as enhancement stones or the rune stones, etc. Another thing to know about this open world PvP is there are also red zones. Now, red zones off of the Haas continent are just flags so that you can attack other players of the other faction anytime you want. These are the higher level zones where the resources and gathering that you want to get for the high level crafting are going to be located. There's also something called the Bounty Hunter system in the open world PvP. This system allows you to track 10 players that have killed you within the last 24 hours, letting you either hunt them down or avoid them if they're stalking you. This system tells you where they are in the world, and you can see them on the minimap. Now, I can see this system being abused in multiple ways, but it's an interesting idea. Let's say a streamer gets stream sniped, then he can track the stream sniper and see him where he is at all times for the next 24 hours on his minimap. So his guildmates and his friends and his fans can all just stalk that stream sniper down and counter grief him, or just keep him away, or you can just easily avoid people who are trying to grief you because you can always see them coming. Of course, you guys can probably be imaginative and think of bad ways to use this system, but I am still interested to see how this bounty hunter system does play out if it stays in the game until launch. From here, we'll transition into the structured PvP content when we're talking about arenas, battlegrounds, and guild PvP. So for arenas, there is a one-person solo training ground that is available starting at level 20, which is used to allow players to kind of practice PvP in their class without any sort of risk to it. So you can just jump in, try a 1v1, and test out different builds. I think this is a really good idea to stop people from being so intimidated from PvP starting out. Now keep in mind, the rest of these battlegrounds and arenas are not gear restricted or equalized in any way. They are only minimum level restricted. so progression of your character will have a significant performance impact. At level 26, you will gain access to a battleground translated as Evil Castle. It is a teamless battle royale style battleground with random buffs that appear around the map and get stronger over time. The winner will be the last man standing, which I think is a pretty cool idea for an MMORPG. At level 29, there is a Battle Canyon battleground becoming available. This is a team-based battleground where there are enemy NPCs that spawn in the center and attack the players, and the goal is to gain the most points by killing the enemies in the middle, but you also get points from killing the enemy team. And once a timer counts down to 0, the team with the most points is declared the victor. And lastly, so far, there is a battleground at level 35 called Panzer Canyon, and this is a sort of faction versus faction battleground, I believe, where each side has a base and the goal is to destroy the enemy base. This can be done by direct assault or killing enemies around the battleground to collect parts and construct this robot, which will advance and attack the enemy's base much more effectively. So once it's built, your group will kind of escort it and protect it and try and keep it alive, but that's the gist of the battleground. For arenas, there is anything from 1v1, 2v2, and 3v3. There is no level or gear restrictions from queuing up for these arenas whatsoever. So if you just want a flat out competitive PvP, that is your place to go. Now let's talk about the guild content and guild PvP and guild wars. Now each guild is capped out with 50 members. You can level up your guild through guild missions that are made to be completed with larger groups or over time, and you are rewarded more for doing the guild quests than you would be for typical normal daily quests. So you're encouraged to do guild missions instead of just questing by yourself. It also has a unique attendance check feature in guilds, which if half your guild logs in and does the attendance check every day, the guild will earn bonus coin. So this is more or less just encouraging you to make sure you keep an active roster. So money earned for the guild can be spent on things like items and skill points, or you can use it to pay wages out to your guild members and just give them money. Now some of the items include things like a pager that when you use it, it allows every guild member to teleport to you for 3 minutes. There's also stuff like guild resurrection scrolls or AoE speed buffs for everybody nearby and things like that. The skill points that a guild can use improve the efficiency of guild members in 3 trees. There's a PvE hunting guild point tree, crafting, and PvP. So you need to choose what your guild will specialize in early on. Now guilds can declare war on other guilds. There are 2 types of wars. There's just competitive and regular. Now the regular wars you can declare at any time for practice. There's no consequences for that. Competitive wars can only be declared during certain times of server hours, generally prime time. Once a war has been declared, a battleground opens up that lets both guilds join with 10 players each, making guild wars essentially 10 versus 10 battlegrounds. In the Guild War battleground, there are 5 capture points. Basically, it's exactly like Arathi Basin. The longer you hold the points, the more points you get, until one clan reaches 1500 points and wins the battleground. If you declare competitive war on another guild and they decline, you will earn rankings based on who you challenged, and there will be a leaderboard for the top guilds. Now the top guilds on the ranking systems on any server will have the ability to bid on special citadels and take control of them, which contain special markets and vendor hubs for guild members. Now these citadels are located on the faction borders at the heart of World PvP and will likely provide other benefits tied into Elyon's housing system, as well as the ability to teleport to that citadel for any guild member every 30 minutes, gain special buffs, and earn taxes from people who use that citadel's services. Next up, I want to go over the crafting and the housing system. Like Black Desert Online, there is instanced housing within the settlements that you can buy that other players can buy as well. Houses will be the primary location to place high-level crafting stations and will more or less be required if you plan on crafting high-level gear. But in addition to instanced housing, there are something called luxury houses, which take up space in the real open world. These can be bid on and owned, but have upkeep costs, and provide much greater benefits to the owner than instanced housing, including the ability to grow and progress the house with various types of farms for gathering and progressing crafting, adding special buff furniture to the house, etc. Similar to BDO, the game uses an energy system to perform life tasks, and you can speed up recovery from resting in a bed and stuff like that. Now luxury houses will also provide you with zone-wide buffs if you own one when you are adventuring in that zone, such as 10% more experience earned. So it's worthwhile to try and buy a luxury house in the higher level areas, but they'll be more sought after and more expensive. You can also allow other players to use your house and tend to your crops, etc. And if you assist in somebody else taking care of their farms, you can earn a portion of their resources. So it kind of encourages you to have roommates and pool together to get a house so that you can all use it in a certain zone. Now for gathering skills, we have stuff like logging, mining, herbalism, animal catching, and fishing. When you're gathering, you can just click on a node in the world and gather. You can play a mini game to gather more quickly. For example, if you AFK fish, you can catch a fish roughly every 3 minutes or so, but if you are active fishing, you'll catch one probably every 30 seconds or so. You are not limited to one gathering profession. The more you use them, the better they will get, earning you higher chances to get more resources and the ability to gather higher level materials as you skill that gathering profession up. For crafting, there are 5 professions as of making this video. There's weaponsmithing, armorsmithing, alchemy, cooking, and furniture building. Each requires a crafting station placeable in your houses. You can level up all the crafting professions pretty high, but you can only master one, and the higher skill the crafting, the better end result you'll get. But lastly, let's talk about enhancement and character progression in Elyon. Now, there is a reason I left this one for last. First, let's talk about the emanation trait trees. These are basically talent trees that you can start leveling up once you've reached max level and complete the main quest line. Now each class has its own trait tree, and you can choose one of 3 starting points. Once you've selected a starting point, you can only go up a single line. So it's not quite like Path of Exile's talent tree where you can just branch off from node to node. You can switch the side completely if you want to, but you always have to go following a single line. You cannot go backwards once you've already gone in a direction. Selecting a node will unlock raw stat points, however, from all of the surrounding connected nodes. So you'll have to carefully plan your route through the nodes to maximize the amount of gains you get. Now the nodes themselves all offer unique bonuses to improve your character, but the final nodes in each of the branching skill trees offer unique active skills that more often than not seem to dictate the complete gameplay of your class. So let's go over rune stones next. When you get equipment in Elyon, the equipment will have rune sockets. These sockets have various colors. Think of them like PoE rune sockets. You can only put runes matching the color of the socket into that socket, with the exception of white sockets that will take all colors. Now it is possible to re-roll the colors of your sockets by sacrificing an item of the same type. It doesn't have to be the same rarity, and you can use special items to lock certain colors during the re-rolls. There are 7 types of runes. Each of them tie into specific gameplay styles. Putting a rune into your gear will give you points into that type of rune skill tree, and the more points you put in, the more skills, abilities, and passives you will unlock for that type of skill tree. You have the chance of specializing in one type of rune skill tree to get the highest bonus from that tree, or you can spread yourself out to get multiple. So you have a chance to choose between 7 different rune types. Red runes, when you put them in your gear, will grant you onslaught skill points and hit chance. Orange will grant you control skill points and hit chance. Yellow runes will grant you destiny skill points and HP. Green will grant you support skill points and HP. Blue grants protection skill points and skill power. And purple will grant you awakening skill points and hit chance. And lastly, the runes in the white slots grant random effects and random stats from any color. Let's say you socket a +5 red onslaught rune into a red slot on your gear. With your 5 onslaught points, you'll get the base hit chance from the red socket and points in the onslaught skill tree. At 5 points in onslaught, you would be able to unlock the onslaught skill that grants you 8% bonus to damage and healing after killing an enemy. Comparatively, if you got +20 red onslaught runestones into your gear, you'd be able to choose from another onslaught skill. Or if you had 20 onslaught and then 5 green runestones, you'd gain the passive ability from both the trees, including the skill from the green tree, which is basically increasing your healing done to allies that have an enemy within 10 meters of them. So you can really see it's very customizable how you put these runes into your gear and what abilities and passive you choose to give yourself. In addition to improving the rune stones, you can also get more rune stones on your gear by enhancing your gear. So let's talk more about enhancing gear now. Now gear comes in various rarities such as uncommon, common, rare, epic, etc. These will change the color of the gear and dictate the base stats on it and how many rune slots and enchantment slots it'll start out with. In addition, there are 2 types of items, breakthrough and regular. Now the only thing you need to know about the difference between breakthrough and regular is breakthrough has higher stats than regular, but when you enhance it, it has a chance to break. And you can only have 1 piece of breakthrough gear equipped for your armor and 1 piece of breakthrough weapon equipped per character. So you don't need to worry about the breakthrough stuff too much. To enhance an item, it involves putting enhancement stones into sockets. Enhancement stones can be +1, +2, +3, and they will basically increase the level of your gear by the level of the enhancement stone. On a failure of a non-breakthrough, you will not lose your item, but you will lose the enhancement stone you were putting into the socket, and the socket will become locked, and an item called a purification stone must be used to unlock that socket before it can be enhanced again. Now how this ties into the runestone system is that once you get a +5 enhanced weapon and a +10 enhanced weapon, generally you will get new extra rune slots on that item. In addition, you can enchant these rune sockets using things like the mana crystals from the PvP events we were talking about earlier, or other rare materials. So as you can see with all of that, there is a lot of progression and customization potential to be had in Elyon. Even 2 players with the same class can have completely different looking skills because of the emanation trees and their runestones. The only big concern I have for Elyon is that this is being made by Hakurai, and this gearing system has a lot of opportunities for cash shop interference. Heck, there's already things like loot boxes on the test realm, and it almost seems like it's designed to be taken advantage of by the cash shop. And that in tandem with the fact that they put an emphasis of no gear equalization in PvP, I would say we could hold out and hope that these features and mechanics don't make it into the westernized version, but we all saw how that turned out for BDO. So undoubtedly, this game is going to contain some pay-to-win elements. I will still likely be checking it out though, because as much as I hate Black Desert Online's cash shop, their combat and gameplay is still really good, and Elyon seems to be expanding on top of it greatly. And given its release window, it's likely going to be a great way to tide me over while waiting for other titles such as New World and Ashes of Creation. But I'd love to hear what you guys think on this, as I know many of you guys have been subscribed to me from my Black Desert Online days and are looking for new games to play. Is Elyon a sort of MMORPG you'd like to see me cover more content on? And is it something you think you would be playing yourself? Leave a comment down below. Thanks for tuning in. I am booping out.